I'm sure you asked yourself, how many credit cards should I have? This is a fair question where the answer is very much unique per person. So how do you answer the question? Welcome back to CreditWise, and today you will answer the question, how many credit cards is too many? When you start to ask yourself a series of very important questions, you'll be able to tell a little bit easier if you should have 1 to 4 credit cards, 15 to 20 credit cards, or even none at all. Let's answer some questions first on what should be our key factor when it comes to credit cards, and that is our financial health. The first question you should ask yourself is whether or not you're likely to overspend on a credit card. The second question is whether or not you're likely to miss a payment or carry a balance. If the answer is yes, or you've done either of these things in the past, it is suggested that you only have one credit card at most until you can learn how to use it properly. Everyone has their own financial situation and problems. It doesn't matter if it's directly your fault or not. If you're using credit cards the wrong way, you better stick to one or even no credit card for now. You just need to take a good look at yourself. Credit card debt is expensive because you have to pay insanely high interest rates and it can be hard to get out of debt. Overspending is a huge hazard to credit card users since many do not realize that they must pay back what they spend. The best way to use a credit card is to treat it like a cash or a debit card and only use it to pay for something if you already have the money in a separate bank account. That way, you can pay off your credit card balance right away if you wanted to. But if you're honest with yourself and don't overspend, miss payments, or carry a balance, then congrats. The next two questions will be about how much money you make and how much you spend. Spending is very important to understand because overspending is a real problem for many people, whether they realize it or not. If you know what your typical monthly expenses are, especially the ones that you'll put on a credit card, you'll see that having more than one credit card can actually help your credit score. The third question you should ask is, how much money do I make? And the fourth is, what are my typical monthly expenses? Your income won't have a direct effect on your credit score, but it can change the amount of credit you can get, which can affect your score. Since credit card companies are giving out credit cards to millions of people, they need a way to measure your credit limit. Everyone's situation is different, but as your income goes up, over time, you'll be able to get higher credit limits on both new and old credit cards. However, it is more important to think about your typical monthly expenses, especially things like gas, groceries, and other things you might use a credit card for. One of the most important things that affect about 30% of your credit score is credit utilization. This is done for each credit card and all of your credit cards together, if you have more than one. It's best to keep your credit utilization below 30% or below 10% if you can. This shows that you're not abusing the credit you've been given. The argument here is that if you only have one credit card, you may be more likely to have a higher credit utilization, which could hurt your credit score if you're not careful. You can always pay off your credit card balance in full or at least a big chunk of it before the statement closing date. That way, the balance and credit utilization that gets reported to the credit bureaus are not too high. You can also get another 2 or 3 credit cards to help with this, which makes sense for a couple of reasons. First of all, if you get more credit cards, the credit limits on each of them will go up. Let's say you spend $2,000 per month on your credit card with a $5,000 credit limit. But you also got 2 more credit cards, one with a credit limit of $6,000 and another with a credit limit of $10,000. To keep things simple, let's say you can spread that $2,000 of spending evenly across all 3 cards. So instead of spending $2,000 on one card, you spend $666 on each of the 3. Now, your credit utilization is much lower than 40% on each of those 3 credit cards. And it's also better as a whole because you're dividing $2,000 in balances by $21,000 in credit limits, which gives you a credit utilization of 9.5%. This is the second reason it can be advantageous to have at least a few credit cards instead of just one. There are many ways to do this, but the return you get from your everyday credit card spending will be directly related to how much you spend. So if your income is low and your expenses are low too, don't worry too much about making money from your everyday spending on a credit card. Just pick the right cards for you to get the most out of them, but spend most of your time and energy increasing your income over time. If your income is already high or maybe it's going up and so are your expenses, then make sure you use the right credit cards because if you don't, you could be leaving a lot of money on the table. Having between 2 and 4 credit cards is the perfect balance for most people. This will help their credit score and payment history as they make payments on time and in full over time. You can also get the most rewards from your daily expenses if you have this many credit cards and use them like debit cards and don't go overboard. For some people, you might even be willing to go higher than 4 credit cards if you see credit card offers that make sense for you and your situation. As long as you're willing to do a little extra research to find those right credit card offers for you, that 2 to 4 credit card number could easily turn into 6 to 8 credit cards. There's no real maximum limit on how many credit cards is too many. If you're worried about hurting your credit score, as long as you don't apply for too many credit cards too quickly, you're good. If you really want to get even more credit cards over time and don't know how many are too many, well, the only thing you need to remember is to be patient and not rush your credit card applications. Everyone has their own financial situation. We all take different risks and are good at different things. If you're patient with your credit card applications, you'll find out what your true upper limit is as you add more and more cards and go over the 10 card mark. This is because you'll eventually reach a point where all of the benefits and value you get from the credit cards aren't worth the trouble it takes to manage them. The last thing you want to do is get ahead of yourself and start overspending just to meet a minimum spend requirement for a welcome bonus, or forget to make a minimum payment, which can hurt your credit score. Even though you might not get welcome bonuses as quickly, the effect of compounded interests will still happen in many other ways. These include how well you know your credit cards and how you use them, how well you can use your points to get the most out of them for travel or other stuff like that. Many people rush into it and focus too much on the short term, which can hurt a lot of their long-term value of the credit cards without even realizing it. When it comes to many different credit cards, make sure you do some research on the different credit card issuers, because each issuer will have different rules about how many credit cards you can hold for them, how many credit cards you can apply for in a certain amount of time, and other things like that. Chase has a famous rule called 524. Other card issuers also have rules, so do a quick Google search and make sure you know what they are because they will affect how many credit cards you can have in the short term. Also, when you apply for new credit cards, make sure to think about things like hard inquiries and the length of time you've had credit. When you get new credits, your credit score will usually drop a few points, at least in the short term. This is because hard inquiries will show up on your credit report, and the new credit card account will make the average age of your credit history a little bit shorter. If you're planning to apply for a loan soon, like a mortgage or a car loan, be aware that applying for credit cards will temporarily lower your credit score. This could lead to higher interest rates on the loans you're applying for, which could cost you thousands of dollars in interest over the course of your life. If this video helped put your mind at ease, leave a like. If you want to learn more tips and tricks about your credits, subscribe to the channel. That's it again from CreditWise, and we'll see you in the next video.